Hi, my name is Aaron Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and motivational speaker. Today we're at the Idaho State Territorial Capitol. Today we're doing a little tour of the hinterlands of Idaho just to get you out and get you into a world beyond experience. And we're at the State Territorial Capitol. That's right behind me. It says, I don't know what the sign says there, that Idaho's first territorial capitol building, Lewiston, Idaho, 1863 to 1865. Now, interestingly, I'll show you the sign in a moment, but there's a sign that says from March 4th, 1863, but on the Wikipedia site, it says March 3rd, 1863. See? I don't know if you can see that. So, is Wikipedia right or is Idaho right about their state capital? I don't know, that's a good question. I'm sure there's some minor detail, but President Lincoln actually signed in the organic law that generated the Idaho State Territorial Capitol. Now, way back when, during the Civil War, yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like, all that was going on, and the president actually signed a law, I guess it was an act, so it was a law, generating the Idaho State Territorial Capitol. Say that 3 times as fast. But it was actually pretty interesting because way back when, the territory was huge. It had Idaho, almost all of Wyoming, except for a tiny southwest corner, and then all of Montana, I guess a sliver of the Dakotas, because back then they actually called it the Dakotas. Just as an aside, people from the Dakotas, North and South Dakota, really get mad when you... They really get mad. Sorry, I'm laughing because it's so funny. They get mad when you say, the Dakotas. We're North Dakota or South Dakota. Woo, yeah. Idahoans don't have that problem. But interestingly, there's more to this story. And there's more. So I'm looking on my phone here, and I was reading the sign. So the Territorial State Capitol was made in Lewiston, which is where I'm standing. Lewiston, which is on the Snake River and Clearwater Rivers, which is right across the Snake River from Clarkston, Idaho. Ha ha ha, Lewiston, Clarkston, right? You got it. Okay, so the Capitol was made here, and apparently there must have been some political intrigue because the Capitol was only here for 2 years-ish. And then there was a big fight between northern Idaho and Maine, Idaho. I'm not exactly sure how I would say that. And Boise was made the capital of Idaho, and like 2 years later after Lewiston was the capital. Now, it wasn't all just a little political pandering. Apparently, it was a big old fight. So we'll check out this building. It's closed at the moment, but I want to take you over here. And you'll see I'm wearing an Idaho-style hat. I gotta be in the theme here. A lot of guys here wear hats like this, so we'll check out this sign. Apparently the building has been moved since, but the sign says, and I'll just read it to you so you don't have to suffer through that, let's see. When the second session of territorial legislature was convened in 1864, contrary to the Organic Act that made Idaho State relocate the capital to Boise. Okay, so that's the modern day capital of Idaho, the state, not just the territory. But despite legal efforts to retain the capital in Lewiston, so legal fighting as usual, the territorial seal, which I don't know, I haven't seen the seal. I was just in Boise a couple weeks ago and I didn't find the seal. Now that's going to be a thing. The seal and most of the governmental archives were removed from Lewiston by force in 1865 and transported to Boise City. So apparently there was an armed fight about where the capital is going to be, and it was actually a fight, like as in by force, meaning with guns, and people here ripping the seal up and taking it to Boise. It's like, woo! Now, interestingly and sadly, coincidentally, so President Abraham Lincoln, signed Idaho into existence as a territory, but then coincidentally on April 14th, when the first territorial seal of Idaho with most of the government documents arrived in Boise, that was the same day that President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. Interesting. So actually Lincoln, President Lincoln was actually intrinsically tied to Idaho in many, many ways. Now, when you talk about Idaho, I mean, that's a long way from the Civil War. And when you do a little bit of reading, you actually learn that, yeah, you better believe Idaho is a long way from the Civil War, and as a consequence, Idaho was really a relatively peaceful place other than the fight over the Capitol. So that was actually a pretty little interesting tidbit. So you'll notice the fence doesn't go all the way around the building here. It just kind of stops there. So that allows us to pretty much walk in. So we'll do that. I'm carrying my tripod here. I don't know. Oh, cool. So we'll take a look in here. Can't see what the camera's seeing, so hopefully it looks kind of interesting. But they have some chairs in there, and looks like John Wayne's in there. I don't know why. But John Wayne's the guy of the West, that's for sure. And we'll come around here. Oh, yeah. So, has this building probably been repaired? And oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, whoa, tripod sideways. Wood and things from that era is long since rotted away. So we'll do this right here. Yeah, that's cool. So what about Idaho? I mean, people are like, yeah, what's the big deal about Idaho? So back in the Civil War, obviously the North and the South, the Confederates and the Union were having their big old fight, and tons and tons of Americans were sadly killed in that dispute. But relatively peaceful Idaho apparently became a bastion for Southern Democrats in the Confederate States to come up here and actually live. Now think about that. Idaho is generally a staunchly pretty conservative state. I mean, not absolutely. I guess you would call it somewhat purple nowadays, but it's pretty conservative with a strong Mormon minority. But a ton of Southern Democrats who escaped after the Civil War came up here, and there was enough Democrats from the Civil War in the South to take over the legislature. Not by force, just by voting. But they apparently had a Republican governor. So there was always apparently quite a fight between the governor at the time and the Democratic legislature at the time. So just even back then, people were all cranked up about it. Now, today, just as a little aside, I read a lot of history, and you think, oh, today is divisive and we're complaining and it's horrible. That's nothing, people, nothing. Way back then, they were using guns, and they used guns a lot to get in fights. I mean, people clubbed each other in Congress. I mean, back then, like the Lincoln-Douglas debates, talking about Lincoln being president and Douglas going against him, they were so vitriolic, they make us look like a bunch of pandering sissies. And we're like, oh, it's terrible. Like, man, you read history, you go back to the founding fathers, like Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. When was the last time two legislators or heads of various government organizations stood in the middle of the street at morning, drew pistols and shot each other? No, it doesn't happen. So we think this is so terrible. It's not terrible. Back in the Idaho Territory days, things were much rougher. Now, I'm gonna have to read from my phone because there's some details I want to get correct. And let's see, so interestingly, Washington State, well, it was Washington Territory, was a huge place. They had Washington, Oregon, or was it the Oregon Territory? It was really strange. Ate up part of Idaho, but then when Idaho was broken off, it ate up, yeah, there you go, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. And so that was broken off, and the Idaho Territory got shrunk a lot. Now, let's see, considerably, yeah, the Wyoming Territory was broken off, and Idaho became a state in July 3rd? Yeah, July 3rd, 1890. So one day before July 4th, 1890, Idaho became a state. Now, people in the Midwest and the East think, oh, these are a bunch of ball cap wearing plaid potato pickers, but actually not. I mean, I've met tons and tons of people here. People in Idaho seem to be very courteous and nice. Walking around Lewiston, people nod and wave and smile. Yeah, okay, in the big city, if you wave at somebody, people look at you like, yeah. Think about that. And when you think of Idaho as, oh, it's a terrible backwater place, and same thing with Wyoming, you smile and wave, there's a very good chance people will smile and wave. I was just at a waffle place for breakfast, and I was using the restroom and going through, and some guy was just washing his hands, and he looks over, oh, have a good day. We didn't totally share a word, we didn't have a conversation, I don't even know the gentleman, but he says, oh, hi sir, have a good day. Totally cool. That has never happened to me in the big city. Consideration. Now, I'm not trying to sell Idaho as, hey, this is a place to live. In fact, I bet that Idahoans don't want you to come live here. They like their state just as is, but, you know, totally different world. Let's see, what other little neat tidbits did I find about Idaho? Yeah, the state capital controversy was like a big old deal. Let's see, there's a place called Idaho City. I don't know if it still exists, where there's 1,751 Chinese immigrants who are over half the residents. The Latter-day Saints group, the Mormons, were and are still a huge minority in this state. Definitely a factor in the politics and how things work out. The Oregon Trail, well, you gotta go through Idaho to get to Oregon. So the Oregon Trail came through here, newspapers, it's funny. A lot of territories all in the West, because the East doesn't really have territories, they have states. There's a Kansas territory. But like Wyoming, the state penitentiary or the territorial prison, it's always a thing. It's like, other than the Capitol building, you've got the prison, and that's like the most famous thing in the territory. It's kind of sad. So even back then, it was all about the prisons. Republican territorial governor, yeah, okay. So good, we're good on Wikipedia information, but let me step back and I'll show you this Capitol building, and it was moved from Capitol Street some time ago. Probably because there's more valuable land there, but let me get the camcorder all set, and we'll just check out this territorial building for a minute. And it's so funny, it just sits here on the corner by itself, and there you go. Check it out. It's got the old school front on the building. Obviously the roof has been done a dozen times, I'm sure. The paint needs a little bit of help, but it's pretty cool. Hey, check it out. There's a jogger. So the Idaho Territorial Capitol building in Lewiston, Idaho. Now, is it totally worth like making a major trip for this guy? Probably not. But if you happen to be anywhere Lewiston, Clarkston, you like a little bit of history, it's totally cool to check out, to be able to touch a building that is, let's say, 150 years old, give or take some change. All right, we can do that. It's well worth to experience these things, and that's what I do a lot of times for people. As I'm driving along and I see some historical curiosity or interesting point, I totally love to stop and make a film to get the world beyond experience. That's my show. It takes you the world beyond. Now, is Idaho the world beyond, like Amsterdam or Tanzania? No. But that's why these are historical tidbits sliced up on YouTube, and they're not on my Amazon channel. So just liking to keep you outdoors, interested, and educated. My name is Aaron Linsdow. I am a polar explorer and motivational speaker. Please like and comment on my video. Subscribe to my channel to help me out. Please support me on Patreon, Venmo, or PayPal. Helps this channel keep going. Enjoy the experience in the world beyond your doorstep and the world beyond your city limits.